personally want to welcome you to our loving, supportive community. Your higher soul self is always communicating to you. What if you could be dialed in and up and clearly tap into divine guidance every day so that you can live a fully aligned, joyful, abundant, flowing life? This radio show podcast delivers authentic conversations about spirituality, meditation, relationships, healing, prosperity, positive mindset, and other important life themes. Fill up on tools, guidance, and insights to help you transform, elevate, and ultimately experience the highest expression of you possible. Hear from other heart and soul-centered guests who are authentically living in alignment with their higher purpose and inspiring others to create the same. It's time to live your soul-designed life with yours truly, Tara Antler. Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to be back on the air. It is feeling just awesome to be here. It has been over 4 years. I can't even remember, actually. It's been 4 or 5 years since I had my last radio show online, and I'm ready for new beginnings and ready to kick off this new show with new energy and this new platform, which I'm really excited about. And I'm so grateful that you're here. So whether you're listening live or whether you're listening to the recording, I am grateful. I will be opening up the calls later on at the end of the show. If you want to hop on or if you want to chat live with me, feel free to do that as well. And if you want to call in, I believe there are some options to do that too. This is a new platform for me, so bear with me while I iron out the kinks and, get things rolling in the most efficient way possible. So today's show I thought was quite appropriate. I always tune in and listen inwardly and upward for the theme, for the topic, for the content, for all of it, basically. And so you'll find that this radio show, as with any others that I do, most of the content is channeled just straight through. I don't have a lot of notes written. I have some key topics that I want to touch on, but most of it is going to be me having a really authentic conversation, a chat. And the topic for today is the beginning of a new self. And I thought it was quite appropriate, being that we are in a great time of transition around the world. So many people I've been talking to lately are going through massive, massive changes. A lot of things resetting, rebirthing. I'm hearing it left, right, and center every time I open up an email. Every time I hear from a client, there seems to be another massive change that's happening in people's lives right now. And so I'm doing a lot of guidance around that and helping people. And I myself am going through major change. 2 months ago, tomorrow it'll be 9 weeks. We brought a new baby girl into the world, and she's our first child, and she is just such a little love bug. We adore her, and I'm really enjoying being a mom. And with that has brought a ton of changes. Talk about growth and being reborn and having to look at things in life from a completely different perspective. Woo! It has been awesome, just totally awesome and challenging at the same time. And so today's topic being all about new beginnings, I think that we go through different points in our life, whether it's yearly, monthly, every 6 months, every week, for everybody it's completely different. But I do see, and I've seen this time and time again in my own life and as well with other clients, that there is constant change and rebirth happening. And with that comes a lot of times some uncomfortable energy too. Fear comes up, insecurity, self-doubt, not sure where to go, where to turn, what to do, what's the direction, and sometimes complete overwhelm to the point where it shuts us down. And so today I really want to address, how do you deal with that overwhelm? How do you gracefully go through these cycles of change and rebirth? And how do you gracefully go through changing your own roles of self? Like I said, for me right now, I've known myself to be a certain way for the last 38 years. And all of a sudden, here we are 8.5 weeks ago, almost 9 weeks ago, we bring this new little one into the world. And everybody kept saying, oh, you'll see, when you're pregnant, it's that prep time, you're preparing to be a mom. And, it kind of gives you that heads up as to what to expect. You may not sleep as much, and all these different things that I heard throughout my pregnancy. And I have to say that I really didn't experience that. I had such a joyful, blissful, I would say almost euphoric pregnancy that I really embraced every day. I embraced every moment, and even all the changes that were happening in my body. It was fascinating to me to observe these changes. And I still slept straight through the night. Yes, I occasionally woke up to go to the bathroom a little bit more than usual, but I did sleep straight through the night. So I really feel like I didn't have a whole lot of prep time. Even with my business, people who know me, my clients and students, I was full on. I think for myself and for my husband, we both were full on. Like we didn't stop. I would say things actually vamped up. Things really increased the moment that I found out that I was pregnant. And I think that had a lot to do with the euphoric energy that was flowing in. Sometimes when we're divinely tapped in, I'd say always when we're divinely tapped in and when we're plugged into infinite source, there is an energy that flows through us that really guides our life and our path and brings so many miracles and awesomeness into our world. And I really feel like that happened for both of us. And so preparing to be a mom, I didn't really feel that during my pregnancy, like I know many people who are moms, my sister included, I hear firsthand all these changes and things that go on. And I didn't really have that prep. And I think that sometimes in life, in general, we don't really have a heads up. We don't really have the prep as to when change is going to come. We're riding along our life, we're going along day to day, taking the steps, following the path, doing our thing. And all of a sudden it's like, whoosh, we're sideswiped, something happens and crap hits the fan sometimes, or sometimes it just feels like, whoa, what just happened? And all of a sudden we find ourselves in this massive state of change or a tailspin. And that tailspin can be very scary for a lot of people. Change can be very scary for a lot of people. And even if we have an inclination that change is happening, or we've initiated change on our own, right? Sometimes we say, okay, you know what? I need to make some change here. I need to leave this workplace, or I need to leave this relationship, or I need to evolve what I'm doing, or I need to change my workplace or my work that I'm doing, my business. Even though we might decide, I still have seen from clients that change can be very disturbing at times, like it really rocks our boat, because there's this version of us, how we know ourselves to be in a certain capacity, right? When you're in a certain relationship, or when you're in a certain workplace, or you're in a certain identity, we know ourselves to be that way for however long we've been in it. And then all of a sudden when change comes, whether it's self-induced or whether it comes, as a result of the universe or our higher self, putting us on the next version of our path, or the higher version of our path, either way, when that change comes, the identity, the ID, the ego version of you goes through these moments of, holy crap, what the hell is happening? And how do I move through this? How do I actually embrace the change and make this easy? Because sometimes it's not so easy. Sometimes, yes, change happens and we're like, woohoo, this is awesome, and we're just riding the flow. But for many people, change brings up a lot of things, and we're going to talk about that today. I also want to give you some tools in how to move through cycles of change and the times when you're beginning a new self or a new version of your life, and also how to just be okay in the void space. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. So for myself, I'm going to just give a little example or a story of what I personally have been going through. I've been wanting to launch this radio show probably for 3 months now. And I thought for sure, I was like, okay, I'm going to be able to do this before Aria comes. And that didn't happen. It was like time was just like speeding along, and so much was happening, and finishing up teaching and clients and getting ready for baby and all of that. And then she arrived a week early, and it was exciting and wonderful and adrenaline rushing and all that crazy awesomeness. And then this new identity, all of a sudden, bang, I was in it. I went from being this entrepreneur, totally independent, love my husband, we have this wonderful relationship together, but knowing myself in a certain capacity, in a certain way, and how my life functioned, my schedule functioned, my business functioned, all of a sudden came to a halt, right? And I knew that was going to happen. I mean, I don't think anybody can ever really prepare you for change of any kind, right? You think that you can, you're like, okay, if I take these steps, or if I prepare myself in this way, it's kind of like when the midwives were asking us for a birth plan, and I was like, birth plan? I was like, can I not just wing it? I don't know what the day is going to bring. I don't know what the birth is going to bring. This could happen or that could happen. I might want music. I might say, turn that friggin' thing off. I have no idea, and so I think that sometimes, yes, we can prepare ourselves and we can plan in terms of what these changes are going to be. But I think if people really look at any times that they have gone through change, there have been a lot of unknown variables that come up. And so we have to learn how to adapt to those variables and adapt to those changes. And some people are better able to adapt to them than others. And sometimes in certain situations, we're able to adapt to them better than other times, and I would say for me personally, I think my adaptation to becoming a mom has been pretty awesome. It's a natural tendency for me to care and to be of service and to really extend compassion to other people. So now I get to do that with our baby girl, you know. But what was really shocking to me was the not even so much the lack of sleep. It wasn't, I adapted to the lack of sleep, no problem. You know, I was like, okay, if I get 4 hours, I get 4 hours. If I get 6 hours, great. You know, and now things are much easier. We're getting like 6 to 8 hours, even though it's broken sleep, we're still getting it. But I think the biggest thing for me was associated with my business. You know, my work and how I am of service in the world has been such a huge part of me. It's been such a huge part of my life. And I would say my ego, my identity, because that's really what ego is. It's your identity. The minute that you come into physical form, you have this ID, you have this physical thing that you enter into that all of a sudden you're given a sex. You're either a boy or a girl. And then you're given a name. And then you're, you know, it goes on and on and on, right? You've got brown eyes or blue eyes. You've got this color hair, that color skin. Like you're given all these identities. And so within the first few moments of life, your identity, you're in it, you know? And so that's a big part of what the ego is your physical identity in the world. And so I would say my physical identity in the world was very formed. You know, I've been running my own business as an entrepreneur, as an intuitive healer, as a coach, as a speaker and author for over 13 years. And it's been full time. You know, I left the Ministry of Health back in, oh gosh, I don't even know the year, but I was 25, I think, 25, 26. And so it's been a full time experience as one way, right? Even though there have been changes in my business, I seem to adapt to those. And then all of a sudden, that version of me came to a halt. And I knew that it would, and I knew that there were changes that were going to be inevitable, but I didn't realize how painful it actually was until my body started showing signs and symptoms. And I share this with clients all the time, that the body will actually speak what's going on under the surface. So whatever we're not facing, whatever we're not looking at, whatever we're not dealing with, whatever stuff is at our subconscious, it will rise, especially when crap hits the fan, especially when we hit those moments of big change going on where our identity or our ego is threatened, right? And so all of a sudden I went from being this, you know, entrepreneur who had a lot of freedom and a lot of, you know, awesome energy and flowing and just goodness all around to all of a sudden, you know, now I'm a mom, and which brings so much joy. I love being of service to Arya Sky. And at the same time, I was really missing that other part of me. And so I had to go through this ego death and identity death, you know, and to put it sounds harsh, but that's really what it feels like, because it's the loss of your old self. Anytime we go through change, anytime we evolve who we are, anytime we step into the next version of ourselves or a new path or a new opportunity or anything of that nature, there will be a moment, whether it's a moment that lasts for a minute or an hour or a day or a week or a month, there is a moment where we experience that sense of loss, that loss of the old self. And for a little while, there's a transition that's happening where there's the old self and then there's this new self that's forming. And so we feel the old self and we keep looking to it and we're like, okay, I'm familiar with this. I know this old self. I know this old world. I know who I am in this capacity. And yet everything in my life right now, we look over to the other side and we're like, is telling me something different. I'm not able to go down to Toronto to see clients the way I was. I'm not able to get out my newsletters the way I normally do. I'm not able to check all my emails the way I do. I'm not able to do the day-to-day functionings that I'm used to. Why? Because there's this new version of self that has emerged. And I can embrace that. I can embrace this new version and enjoy it. And yet at the same time, I was missing the old version of me. And I think I didn't take enough time to really embrace that or allow myself to go through the transition and to maybe even grieve the loss of the old self. And then all of a sudden my body started showing signs and symptoms, and I had well, it's still healing, but I have eczema or psoriasis, I'm not sure which one it is, on my right hand, not on my left, but on my right. And the right side of the body is the masculine, it's the doing, it's the creating in the world, whereas the left side of the body is the feminine, it's the receiving, it's the intuitive, the allowing part. So allowing and receiving, it's that's easy right now for me. Allowing time with Arya, allowing time for me to sleep when I need to sleep. All those things are wonderful. And I really feel like I've tapped into the divine feminine in ways that I probably haven't ever in my life before. And at the same time, I'm experiencing this uncomfortableness in my right hand where I can't grip anything. I can't hold on to anything. It's actually painful to bend my fingers, so the doing hand can't really do. And so what it caused me to do then is go inside myself, because in any time or any moment that we have pain, it's an opportunity for us to look within. It's an opportunity for us to really look at what's happening and what is uncomfortable and why is it uncomfortable, and what is the body speaking to me? What is it sharing? What is it offering? What's the teaching? What's the value here? Because there's always value to anything that we go through. Anything that's uncomfortable is an opportunity for growth and change. And so I really took the time to look at it and talk. I actually sat there and looked at my hand and I talked to it and I was like, okay, what are you saying to me? And I really listened to how I was describing it. And I was like, well, this is really painful. It's very uncomfortable. I can't grip anything. It's itchy. It's irritating. It's frustrating. And it's red and it's hot and it's inflamed. And so I really had to look at those qualities and bring it back to myself and be like, okay, do I recognize any of those qualities within me? Am I feeling any of that stuff? And am I feeling it deep inside of me and not really acknowledging it? And that's really what was happening. I wasn't acknowledging the grief. I wasn't acknowledging the frustration. I wasn't acknowledging all of that I just described. And so now that I am, and now that I'm like, okay, let me be really easy on myself. Let me be gentle on myself. Yes, there's a change happening. And let me embrace the grief. Let me embrace the transition that's happening. And I think one of the most valuable things that we can do that I actually, I want to do for myself, because when I was tuning into what I wanted to bring through for you today, one of the things that came through was celebrating or having a ceremony to release the old. So anytime you're going through change, whether that's, like I said, change in relationship, change in vocation, change in where you're living, any change, even if it's change in the dynamics of a current relationship, I think sometimes we're so quick to keep moving, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. And I think that's kind of how the world is set up today, that we forget to acknowledge what is happening on every level, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. We leap forward so fast sometimes that we miss what's happening right here, right now. And then the body starts screaming at us and sometimes will shut us down. And I've heard that from clients too. It sometimes will shut us down, where it's like, stop everything. Just pause for a moment. I was talking to a client last night on the phone, and she's going through some massive change too. And what happened to her is all her practices, whether it was yoga or meditation or all these different things, tools that she has, nothing was feeling good to her. Even though she was doing her best to lift herself out of this and to feel better, nothing was having her feel better. Nothing was alleviating the uncomfortableness that she was going through. And I said, well, maybe what you need to do is just be okay with the uncomfortableness. Acknowledge that there's change happening. Acknowledge that there's growth going on. Acknowledge that there's an old version of you that is releasing or dying off, or that is letting go. And it's okay to watch the release, and it's okay to grieve it. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be sad in a moment. It's okay to say, okay, there's this old version of me that doesn't exist anymore. And I don't want to hold on to it. And I don't want to hold on to the grief, because anything that we don't release on an emotional level gets stored within us, and somehow, some way, it will find its way out. It always does. The same thing happened for me. I didn't acknowledge, I probably didn't have time to acknowledge what was happening in the first, 6 weeks of Miss Arya Sky being in our life. Because I was really just bang in to being a mom and to being of service in this new way. And I didn't really have the time to look at what was going on. And then all of a sudden, all that emotional junk, all that emotional stuff, all that chaos that was actually happening, regardless as if I was looking at it or not, all of a sudden it surfaced in my body. And that's kind of the last resort as well. When the body has some sort of ailment or dysfunction, it's kind of the last stop. I always see energy disruption happening, out in the spiritual or energetic body first. And if we don't catch it, it drops down into the mental body. And then our thoughts start changing. We start having, not so happy dialogue, which I went through, trying to breastfeed and going through all that, which was a whole other story for another day. But it was a huge challenge. I went through a lot of shame and guilt around not being able to breastfeed in the way that I thought I would be able to, and shame from inside myself and from outside, guilt inside myself and guilt from outside. And I did my best to just keep moving because that's what I needed to do. I needed to just keep moving. I needed to make sure my daughter was fed. I needed to make sure that I was getting sleep. I needed to make sure that those basic physical things are tended to. But sometimes when we're so focused on the physical world, we're not tending to the emotional world. We're not tending to the mental world. And all that junk for myself was going on in there, and I wasn't looking at it. And then finally it erupted in my body, and that's what I'm dealing with now. And whenever something comes up in the body, it's a reflection of your past. It's a reflection of past thoughts and past emotions. And so when we don't catch it in the mental field, it drops down into the emotions, and then we start feeling strange. And, I actually thought about something. Everybody prepares pregnant women for postpartum depression. And I was really thinking about it, and because it's so rampant and it's something that a lot of women go through, I was thinking to myself, what if it's not so much, yes, I know there's changing of hormones and all that kind of stuff, but what if a big part of what is happening on an emotional, mental level is the ego death of an old version of self and being thrown into this new version of self that you're not prepared for? And that can bring up a lot of emotional stuff. But if we don't deal with it, it all of a sudden sinks down and drops down into the body. And then we have dysfunction that shows up. And so before it hits the physical body, I would say anytime change comes, take the opportunity to feel whatever you're feeling. If you were to lose a pet or someone that you would go through a grieving process about it, right? And that seems to be okay. But whenever we go through massive stages of change, somehow we have to just keep on moving, just keep on moving, just keep on moving. And one of the things that I did last night with the client that I was talking to, and we connect regularly, something that I haven't done with her in a really long time, I really just sat and listened to her while she emoted and while she released and while she cried. And sometimes that's what we need to do. We need to feel held. We need to feel supported. We need to know that it's okay. We need to just release. And I think it's really valuable in giving ourselves permission to just cry and to be okay with whatever emotions are there, whether it's anger, frustration, sadness, grief, whatever it is, to first be okay with whatever it is that you're going through, whatever it is that you're feeling in these times of change. And then I would say when you do feel like you're ready to lift or you're ready to move on, then create a little celebration or a ceremony to release the old self. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for carrying me up until this point. I had to do this for myself mentally, where I was like, I reflected back on my journey, and I reflected back on everything that I've created in the last 13 years in my business, because that's really the identity that I was grieving. And I didn't know what my new business was going to look like. I didn't know how I, as an entrepreneur and as a businesswoman, was going to look or be in the world while being a mom. And so with not knowing that, I was really going through that inner conflict. And finally, I just sat back and overwhelm was coming and judging myself, and I haven't done enough yet. And all of a sudden, like all these limitation thoughts started coming up. And I really was just like, stop. Just be gentle on yourself. Be easy on yourself. Take a moment to acknowledge everything that you have created thus far. And I took some time and I went for a walk and I really thought about it, and I was like, wow, I've experienced so much over the last 13 years that it blows my mind. And I started reflecting on all the things that I've created, all the things that I've actioned, all the things that have come to fruition. And then all of a sudden I found myself being in a really beautiful state of gratitude, total gratitude for everything that happened. And then all of a sudden I felt myself lift. And from that lift, it brought me back into alignment with my higher self, the soul self, whatever you want to call it, the highest version of you, clarity, truth. It brought me back into alignment with that. And I would say for any of you that are going through times of change, when you are ready to celebrate or have a ceremony in releasing the old self, take a moment to acknowledge all that was created. So if it's a relationship, for example, that you're leaving, Look at the relationship and all that you've experienced in that relationship, however long you've been with them, whether it was a year, whether it was 10 years. And this could be, intimate relationship. This could be a work relationship. This could be a friend relationship. Look at all that has been created. And sometimes the mind might go to the negative and be like, oh, well, all this crap happened and look at the shit that hit the fan and look at the stuff that we had to go through and look at how intense it was and look at all the pain. I encourage you at some point, it's fine to, if you want to reflect on that. However, I wouldn't want you to stay in that, because anything that you focus on expands. Anything that you linger on becomes more. And so I would rather you, if you look at it, fine, but then release it and then flip it around and go, okay, what were the positive things that came of this? What did I learn? How did I grow? How did I evolve? How did I become more of myself from all this experience? And from that place, all of a sudden, you will start to feel gratitude. You will start to feel this sense of joy. Wow, what an amazing experience. Look at all that I've learned. Look at how I've grown. And then all of a sudden, your energy lifts. And once you lift, you end up being in a new state of clarity. And that clarity provides the next step. It provides the direction, because that's something that I hear from clients all the time, especially in times of change, the feeling of not knowing what's next. Not having the clarity, not knowing the steps. And when we're in a state of grief, it's very challenging to get the clarity because we're deep in emotion. And at the same time, this is where it's allowing the emotion, allowing yourself to grieve, and then allow yourself to reflect, allow yourself to celebrate what that old was, celebrate who you were in that relationship as well. How did you show up in the relationship? If it's a work situation, look at all that you've experienced. Look at all the skills. Look at all that you contributed. Look at how much you've grown. Look at yourself before you entered into that and look at yourself after. There will always be growth. And when we can acknowledge that, that is a very different perspective on what was, which allows us then to release from it. Because if we can look at what was from a very positive place, then we can easily look forward and go, okay, I'm ready. I've learned a lot and I'm ready for the new. I've experienced a lot. I'm ready to go forward. And then all of a sudden there's an ease, there's a grace that just takes over our life, and we start to flow forward. And when we flow forward, everything starts to show up in a way that feels so good. And the same thing happened for me. After I had that experience and I looked at, everything that I've created over the last 13 years, all of a sudden I was like, okay, I feel really good about that. I actually feel complete. I feel complete with what I've done. I feel complete with what I've created. And then all of a sudden I lifted and I felt this sense of ease. And I was like, you know what? Everything's going to be okay. I've always been guided. I've always received the next steps. And I know that will continue on. That is truth, and that will continue on. And I allowed myself then to enter into the void. After we go through the change and we let go of the old, there's a natural thing that happens. We move into the void. And the void is that space in between the old and the new, in between what was and what is to be. It's kind of like a snake shedding its skin. That's kind of how I felt with whatever this is on my hands, whether it's eczema or psoriasis. I feel like I'm shedding. I'm shedding the old. I'm letting go of the old. And the more that I resist it, the more it flares up. The more gentle I can be on myself, it tends to ease, and then it goes away. And then all of a sudden I find myself resisting it again, and fear starts to pop up, which is totally normal. And then I allow myself to just let go again. And last night I said to my client, I'm like, when all else fails, if none of the practice works, have a nap, because napping is a temporary reset. It resets from the ego, because in the new identity being formed, so in this space of the void in between, the ego can really start to flare up. And what I mean by that is it brings up resistance. It doesn't want you to grow. It doesn't want you to change. It wants you to stay exactly the way you are. It wants you to stay in the old world. It wants you to keep doing things the way you were, because it's so attached to the identity of who you were. And so it can bring up all sorts of things. It can bring up pain. It can bring up discomfort. It can bring up insecurity, self-doubt, uncertainty, you name it, right? And part of the trick, or the way to move out of that, is to be really gentle, to first acknowledge that the ego is flaring up, and then be really gentle on yourself. Take a nap, do gentle things, tap into the divine feminine, that nature that allows us to just be, and to be okay in the void. It also reminds me of And you've probably heard this before, the caterpillar turning into the butterfly, that there's that time of transformation when the caterpillar is one identity, it's one version, it's one physical form of itself. And then it goes into the chrysalis, it literally decomposes itself, it puts itself into this liquid state, which is kind of the nothingness. It's not anything, it's just this liquid before it turns into the butterfly. And that's what the void is like. You're in this liquid state where things feel very unknown, they feel very unfamiliar, they feel very uncertain, and it feels kind of strange. And for a lot of people, it's very uncomfortable. And that's the point where people want to move out of that stage so quickly. They're like, I want to just get out of this. I want to just get out of this. I want to keep moving. I want to keep moving. And I tried that myself. I was like, I don't like this. I don't like this feeling. I want to keep moving. I want to create. I got to get going. And then we end up creating something based on our old self again. And sometimes it might work for a little while, but eventually we'll find ourselves right back in the same situation and the cycle will repeat itself. And that's what was happening to me for a good couple weeks. Every day I'd wake up and I'm like, okay, I got to create something. I got to do something. I got to get going. I got to get going. And I would try to create something and it wouldn't feel good inside. It felt like it was coming from this push place. Felt like it was coming from the ego state is really where it was coming from and the old version of me. And so it wasn't until I just finally let go and I was like, okay, you know what? Whatever ideas I had before about myself and how things should be run or how things should be, I let go. I release and I let go. And I'm just going to be gentle on myself. I'm going to nurture myself. I'm going to take more naps. I'm going to go for walks. I'm going to embrace what is right now. And so for me, what is right now is having this baby. So I'm embracing just being with her. I'm embracing just looking at her for an hour. I'm embracing, going for a walk and not taking my phone with me, not needing to check my emails. I'm embracing all of that. As unfamiliar as it is, I am embracing it. And when we embrace, sorry, I just have to clear my throat for a second. That's something that comes out from lack of sleep. I find my voice gets a little scratchy, but I find that when we embrace, just gonna have some water. When we embrace the moment and whatever is presenting, when we embrace the void, we're like that caterpillar turning into a butterfly. And I'm not sure what the caterpillar's consciousness experience is like, but if it was to resist the void, if it was to resist that in-between liquid state, it would never become the butterfly. And the butterfly is so beautiful and so elegant and so transformative. And that's the exact same thing for us. If we resist the void, we miss out on all that this void time gives us. It provides us the moment to reset. It gives us a chance to recalibrate. It allows us a chance to transform not just our energy, but our mind, our thoughts, our emotions, and even our physical body. Every single time we go through transformation or we go through changing of roles, changing of identity, your physical body will change as well. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but I have. Any time that I have stayed, let's say in a relationship for too long, when I knew it was time to go, or a job for too long and it was time to move on, I started feeling sluggish and heavy, and I actually started to gain weight every single time. And when I finally jumped, I finally leapt, and I finally took the change that was there and went with it, all of a sudden I felt more energy, I felt lifted, and I would shed whatever weight I put on with ease, without doing anything different, without changing my diet, without exercising, any of that stuff. It just naturally fell off. Because even the body knows when it's time to grow. The body knows when it's time to change. Just like that caterpillar, it knows. It goes into the chrysalis, it goes into the cocoon, it goes into the void, and it dematerializes itself for a moment, and it reorganizes. Your cells will reorganize. You will become brighter. And I always find that every time we go through periods of transformation, we come out of it more beautiful, shinier, brighter. That's when people look at us that haven't seen us in a while and they're like, wow, you look fabulous. You're glowing. What's going on? Because the change that happened on an energetic or a mental or a job or a relationship level, it actually has an effect on the physical body. Your body, you become very transparent to what is happening on the inside. So ways to be okay with the void, like I said, is just being in it, relax into it. Imagine that you're sitting back on a raft going through, a beautiful stream or a river, Sit back for a while. Enjoy what's happening. Let the transformation happen. Let the shedding begin. Whatever comes up, be okay with it. If it's emotion and it's sadness or whatever it is, be okay with it. Embrace it. Because before you know it, this time is going to pass. Before the caterpillar knows it, it's going to be reemerging as the butterfly, and then life will take on a whole new shape and you'll be moving forward and flying again. But that time of void is really, really important. It's essential. And I always find with any big change, whether it's a big project or a big relationship or a big leap forward, there is big growth that comes. And so the void allows us that chance to look at the growth. Even today I was in the shower and I was like, okay, let me look at anything else that I'm holding on to. What are the belief systems that I'm holding on to? What are the constructs that I'm holding on to that are associated with this old self? And I could hear it, the workhorse having to do, go, go, go. Don't be lazy. Don't stop. Just keep going. That voice kept coming up and I was like, okay, I release and I let go of all of that. I clear it. I let it go. And I take a deep breath and I exhale it out of my body. I exhale it out of my consciousness and I actually purge it and release it so that I don't carry it forward. That's the other beautiful thing about the void. Whatever inner work that you do during this time, whatever you release during this time, you release it for good. You do not carry it forward into your next version of self. So you actually free yourself time and time again. So if it's forgiveness that you need to go through, you will release it. And then you do not carry that stuff with you. You don't carry the heaviness with you. If it's frustration, you can release the frustration, right? One of the powerful exercises that you can do is asking yourself, what do I believe about anything, right? Like about the old relationship. What do I believe about the new relationship? What do I believe about my work and my relationship to work? What do I believe about this path that I'm getting ready to step onto that's unfamiliar and unknown? Is there fear that comes up? Okay, fine. Fear might come up. Release it. Let it go. I choose to let it go. I give myself permission to be free. I give myself permission to be free from anger. I give myself permission to be free from grief. I give myself permission to be free from angst. I give myself permission to be free from martyrdom. That's another thing that was coming up for me over the last little while, this martyrdom pattern. Like, holy crap, where did that come from? I knew that I had that long, long ago. That was something that I had addressed and cleared when I was probably 24, 25. And I haven't had to look at it since. I thought it was like gone. And then all of a sudden it kept coming up over and over and over again. And to feel sorry for myself and feeling sorry. And I was just like, what? Come on. So it was another layer of it to release that because I don't want to carry that stuff. Anything that is heavy, if we're moving forward, why would you want to carry it with you? If you're going on a new adventure, you're only going to pack the stuff that you really want to bring with you. Leave the rest behind. Let it go. So I would say in the void, take the time to be okay with whatever is there and then release it. Clear it. Make the conscious choice. Use that statement if you need to. I give myself permission to be free. I give myself permission to release what's there. Take a deep breath in and then let it go. Take a deep breath in and then let it go. Take a deep breath in and let it go. And every time you breathe that out, you're exhaling. Not just the emotional energy of it, but you're releasing the mental energy of it. You're releasing what's been stored in your body. And eventually, you will feel freer and freer. You will feel the lift. And then naturally, when it's time to reemerge, you will. And then comes the redefinition of self, the new beginning, right? We go through cycles of change, death and rebirth all the time, death and rebirth all the time. And when we finally let go, and I had to do this over the last couple of weeks, I just let go. And like I said, I embrace everything. I'm still clearing into today. And yet I feel myself starting to lift. I can feel my gaze lifting. I can feel more joy entering into my experience. And here we are starting the radio show. It's a step forward. And you'll find the same thing in your own life. You'll know when it's time to step forward. You'll know when that moment comes to pop out of the cocoon, to release yourself from the void. You'll feel it because you'll feel a sense of joy. You'll feel a sense of ease. It's not going to be pushing. It's not going to be hard. It's not going to be, you won't have to fight yourself is basically what I'm saying. When we're hanging on to the old, there's conflict, there's a fight, there's a battle, and no one wins. When we release with ease, when we're graceful with ourselves, when we're gentle with ourselves, we can then move ourselves gently out and into the world again. And when we finally get out, I'm telling you, things fly. Like the new version of you will be so wonderful and so beautiful and so joyful. And you'll look back at all this and be like, whoa, thank God I went through that. Thank God I allowed myself to move through it in the way that I did. Because there's always even better things on the other side of it. We evolve forward. We don't evolve backwards. We don't grow backwards. You don't grow dropping down. You grow up. You evolve up. You grow forward. And so you become shinier. You become better versions of yourselves. Every time you go through these changing of roles, every time you let go of the resistance, every time you release the old self and you become new. And so one of the fun things that you can do when you feel yourself re-emerging or getting ready to move past the cocoon and out into the world again, spend some time and redefine who you want to be. You know, what version of you have you always wanted to express? What are the things that you've always wanted to create? What are some of the experiences you've always wanted to have in the world? And start thinking about them, contemplate them, daydream about them, write them down if you want to, make vision boards if you want to. Whatever feels good to you, spend some time in crafting, creating, dreaming into who this new version of you is. How do you want to be in the world? You know, and I feel myself, I'm not quite ready yet to do that, because every time I get ready to do that, I feel this like, ooh, I don't quite know. And if you're not quite sure, then that's okay. You're still in the cocoon getting ready to come out. It's like a little chick in the egg cracking its way out. It slowly cracks, one little crack, and then it waits for a while. I watched a video of this, a friend of mine posted the other day. She has these little chicks, and they were hatching. And I was watching them. It's like one little crack, and then it pauses. And it's like another little crack, and then it pauses, and then another little crack, and then it pauses. And I think about, actually right now, I was just thinking about when I was delivering the baby. It was the same thing. I remember, I had a very easy delivery. Like she came within 2 hours. Like she was out into the world in about 2 hours, less than 2 hours. And I had 6 massive, labor contractions, and she was here. But I remember, she was coming out, and then she'd suck back in, and she'd come out and she'd suck back in again. And I remember crying and being like, no, like I'm ready for her to come out now, And then all of a sudden it'd be like, and she'd come back, and I was like, no, she went back up. And I remember the midwife saying to me, it's okay. She's preparing herself, and your body is preparing itself. Instead of like blasting out, she's preparing. So she comes out and she goes back in. She comes out, she goes back in to prepare my tissues and to prepare my body and to prepare herself for coming into the world. And if I was to resist that, or if I was to push too hard, I could rip, I could tear, I could, all sorts of things could happen, right? And the same is true for creation in the world, not just when we're having babies. The same is true. If we push too hard prematurely, sometimes the creation that we're wanting doesn't turn out the way we want it, or it feels laborious. It feels hard. It feels not enjoyable. And whenever that happens, to me, that is not spirit. That is not higher self. That is not your soul. That is ego. That is ego wanting to push to get out of this because it's freaking uncomfortable, right? And I get it. 100%. I get it. It is not fun to feel uncomfortable. However, if we can allow ourselves to be in the uncomfortableness and know when it's time to create forward and listen inwardly, this is where I love meditation, because meditation allows us that moment to be still and to listen inwardly and to know when it's time to rebirth ourselves, then the perfect time will arrive. And like I said, for myself right now, I haven't felt that yet. I don't know what this new version of me looks like. I'm still dreaming on it. I'm still contemplating it, and that's okay. It's okay to dream a little bit longer. It's okay to allow ourselves to be in the void, in the cocoon a little bit longer. Before we know it, we'll be out into the world again. But when it does come time, then I want you to spend some time and redefine, dream about it, enjoy it, create it. You are the creator of everything. Every thought, every emotion that you have contributes to your creation. And if the old self has retired and we've graduated from it, then who do we want to be? How do we want to be in the world? How do we want to express ourselves? What ways do we want to use our gifts? What are things that we've always wanted to do that we put on the back burner? What are new ideas that want to come through us? One of the statements and or affirmations or mantras, whatever you want to call it, that I learned long ago when I was living in LA. I went to Agape regularly, Agape Spiritual Center, and one of the things that Michael Beckwith said was, "I'm open to a new idea." And that phrase has stuck with me for the last, I guess, 7 or 8 years now. I'm open to a new idea. I'm open to receive a new idea. And I would say you could do that about anything. I'm open to receive a new relationship. I'm open to receive new ways that my gifts want to flow through me. I'm open to receive new opportunities. I'm open to receive new relationships that are going to help me thrive in the world. I'm open to receive new travel. I'm open to receive new ways that I haven't even thought about yet. And when we can put that energy out there, when we have that statement and we feel it and we allow ourselves to be in the receptivity, new energy will come through. New ideas will come through. You know, I found myself trying to re-establish or bring forward old ideas that I had that I hadn't yet created. Ideas that I wanted to bring forward maybe 5 years ago, 2 years ago, a year ago. And I was trying to move them forward. And every single time I tried to do that, the energy did not feel good. Things felt like sludge. They just were not moving. It was like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden overwhelm would come and frustration would come and then comparison would come because I'd open up Facebook and I'd see somebody else who's creating something that I've always wanted to create. And then I'd start comparing and then I'd start getting frustrated. And I'm like, oh my God, I wasted all this time. When did I do this 10 years ago? You know? And then all of a sudden I'm back in the land of the ego and I'm back in that space of judgment and feeling crappy and overwhelmed. And then I just flatline and I'm like, forget it. I'm not doing anything. And sometimes it's not for us to bring forward, sometimes it is, but if we're trying to bring forward ideas or versions of ourselves that are from the past into now, and it doesn't feel good, then perhaps it's not meant for us to actualize that thing anymore. Maybe there's a new version of it that wants to be created. Maybe there's a new way. Maybe there's a new possibility for us to create. And it may be familiar and it may be similar to something we wanted to do before. But if we can allow ourselves to release even that, to say, I'm open to a new idea. I'm open to new ways that my gifts want to flow through me. I'm open to whatever my highest self wants to bring. And be okay with the unknown for even just a little bit. Something new will arrive. I had this happen when we were up north about a week and a half ago. And I always go up north to reset because it's a place for me that just provides so much goodness and soul connection and nature and all that good stuff. And so I had this opportunity to reset. And when I was there, all of a sudden this new idea popped in. It was playing off of some of the things I had thought about creating about 2 years ago. But it was an evolved version of it, and it was more fun and more joyful that I was like, oh, I can hardly wait to do this. Like, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to create this in the world. That's when you know. When it feels good, it's in alignment. When you feel joyful and everything just all of a sudden arrives, like you can see the whole thing right then and there, that's new energy. That's alignment. When you're trying to bring forward something from the past that you hadn't created yet, and it doesn't feel good, and you can't see the direction, or it feels too sluggish, maybe it's time to let that be in the past. Maybe it's time to retire it. So that's one example of, ideas and stuff like that. When it comes to, let's say if you're moving let's say if you're moving to a new location, there will be that natural grief that happens as well as to, I'm leaving behind this old place and this old space that I lived in and I'm moving into something new. Maybe as you look towards the new while you're in the void or you're in that limbo space and you look to the new and you're like, okay, what do I want my experience to be like as I move into this new space? How do I want to feel every day? How do I want to wake up? How do I want to be? And then from there, those qualities that come forward. So let's say you say, I want to wake up feeling really joyful. I want to feel in flow. I want to feel totally abundant and aligned. Whatever those qualities are, take those qualities and start embodying them now. Don't wait until tomorrow comes. Don't wait until next week comes or next month or whenever you arrive in that place. Take those qualities and embody them now. Be them now. Feel them now. Because when you can do that, that time gap from where we are now and what is about to come, it shortens, it closes even faster, because there's nothing worse than sitting and waiting for tomorrow to come, nothing worse than waiting for next month to come, or whenever we think that new thing or person or place is going to arrive. The waiting can just be even worse than the letting go. And so instead of waiting for time to arrive, be those qualities now. Because if you can be those qualities now, you be and you become all of that energy, and the gap closes. And before you know it, you'll be there. And you'll be there with such joy and such gratitude. And what I always find happens is that when we can become those qualities now, even though that thing hasn't happened as yet, all of a sudden miracles start happening in our world right here, right now. So let's say you want to wake up feeling grateful, in that future life, or that future version of yourself, that new version of yourself. I'll use myself as an example. So this project, which I'm, cultivating right now, I see it being successful. I see it touching millions of lives. I see it being a platform for people to live their soul design life, right? And I see myself being up north. I see us living in this beautiful house where, there's trees all around, and I can wake up and I just feel so grateful looking at the river and the trees, and seeing our daughter playing and having this incredible experience of life for us as a family, and still being able to do what I love to do and be of service in the way that I can be of service. So I'm going to take those qualities of gratitude. I'm going to take the qualities of joy. I'm going to take the qualities of being of service in the most divine aligned way. And I'm going to choose to be that now, even now. Before that thing arrives, I'm going to choose to be those qualities now. So every day I can choose to wake up and say, okay, today I choose to be grateful. Today I look out my window. I'm grateful for the trees. I'm grateful for the sound of the birds. I'm grateful for the blue sky. I'm grateful for my daughter. I'm grateful for what I have. I'm grateful for being of service in the way that I can be of service today. And then I think of showering my gifts and sharing my gifts with the world in the most aligned way. Today I choose to shower and share my gifts with the world in the most aligned way. I choose to be that. I choose to be that today. Show me how to do that today. Show me how to be grateful today. Show me how to walk in that path today. And as I surrender to it now, as I allow myself to be those qualities today, all of a sudden, the energy of who I am just completely transforms. It elevates. It becomes joyful. It becomes radiant. It becomes beautiful. And then all of a sudden, the path, the day-to-day moments, the steps that I have to take, the conversations that I have, the things that I get to do in a day become joyful, become filled with gratitude, become day-to-day examples of me being in divine flow already. And that's where miracles come. That's where goodness comes. That's where so much awesomeness begins to flow in that we can be even more grateful for. So I'm not waiting, sitting, twiddling my thumbs, waiting for that vision over there, that new version of myself, whenever it's going to arrive. I'm being it now. I'm choosing those qualities now. And when you feel that, there is a lift. There is an alignment that happens, and everything begins to work for us and through us in the most beautiful way. And that is when you then embody your new version of self. It's not something that you have to wait for. That vision that you have, that redefining thing that you did of seeing yourself in that new way, you don't have to wait. You become it now. And resolution happens, forgiveness happens, joy happens, all the most beautiful qualities, everything that we've ever wanted occurs right in that moment. Everything. And it comes with ease because we've allowed ease. So that's where it can become joyful and easy, and the shedding of the old can become this wonderful experience if we just allow ourselves to go through it. I'm just going to check my notes here to see if there's anything else that I want to bring forward, because we're coming up to an hour already. I can't believe how fast the time flies. And let's see here. I talked about that. Oh, yes. The one other thing that you can do about being in the void, or when you're waiting for that new version of self to arrive, that new self to be here, create enjoyable moments right now. Enjoy, whether it's looking at the trees that are blossoming, enjoy anything that you're engaged with, whether it's taking a bath or taking a shower or going for a walk, eating something, having your favorite drink, whatever it is, enjoy those simple moments. Bring gratitude to those simple moments, and create enjoyable things to do in the meantime, so that you're, again, not painfully waiting for tomorrow to come. You're actually enjoying life that is here and now. So the new version of you is not tomorrow. The new version of you is actually right here, right now. It's simultaneously existing with the letting go of the old. We get to choose then where we want to align ourselves. Do we want to align ourselves with the old? Do we want to attach ourselves to the old? Do we want to resist the change that's happening? Or do we want to quickly and gracefully allow ourselves to see the new version of ourselves, those qualities that we want to step into? Be them now. Be them now. And then you will feel the new version of yourself. You will feel it rising up in you moment after moment after moment after moment. And that's when you know that transformation has come. You've become the butterfly. You already are the butterfly. It's just sometimes I don't think we see it because we're so focused on the past. We're so focused on holding on to the past and so focused on whatever all that other stuff is, the chaos and the change and all whatever is going on. And so we miss what's happening right now. Change is happening all the time. It's happening simultaneously with the letting go. So if you can embrace those qualities now, you step into the new you now. So I hope all of that makes sense to you. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. My email address is Tara, T-A-R-A, at tarahealingsanctuary.com, or feel free to connect with me on Facebook as well. I believe the Facebook handle is just Tara Antler or Tara.Antler. But I love hearing from you. I love hearing from people in terms of what this experience is for you. If you have any questions, I'm going to open up the chat box here just to see if there's any chats that are coming in. Let's just see here. I'm just going to test this out. And so if you are on live, feel free to chat. If you have questions, you can do that as well. And I am so grateful that you were able to be here and share this time with me, whether you're listening live or listening to the recording afterwards. And like I said, if you do have any thoughts or questions that you want to share after listening to this, or if you want some personal insight, I have to figure out with this new platform here how to allow people to dial in. I believe that there's a connect to Skype. So I might have to do that for the next show, to connect to Skype, and then people can Skype in if they do have questions and they want to come on live, and we'll get that going, because I do love connecting and communicating, and I love Q&A. I love answering questions because it allows me to channel the insights in a really clear way, and also in a very real-time way as well. So if you do have questions about what you're experiencing personally, feel free to hop on Facebook or send me a message, and I'll get to you for sure. I will message you. But in the meantime, I'm going to wrap up here. In the meantime, embrace the change that's happening. Let yourself go through whatever you're going through. Do your best to let go of the resistance, because anything that we resist persists. Anything that we resist creates more of that thing that we're resisting. So if you find yourself holding on to the past, or you find yourself looking back to the past and longing for the past, or trying to hold on to that old version of you, I encourage you to just let it go. Just release it. Even if it's for a moment, just release it and feel into whatever that feels like. I guarantee you'll feel that sense of freedom. You'll feel the weight drop off. And then all of a sudden that re-emerging, that transformation, that clarity will begin to, it will begin to surface, and you'll begin to move yourself forward very powerfully. And when that new you, when you feel it, gosh, it's worth celebrating. And celebrate all of it. Celebrate the triumphs, celebrate the challenges, celebrate the gifts, celebrate the triggers, celebrate all of it, because it's really all a part of your experience. It's part of what you've crafted here. It's part of what you said yes to. It's part of what you wanted to come in to have. And again, if we don't resist it and we embrace it and we're grateful for it, we get the gift and we get to keep going. We get to keep moving on and upward. And that's really what our experience is all about here. So enjoy the week. I'm going to be back again with another episode in 2 weeks. So I'm going to be alternating, actually. The radio show will be every 2 weeks. And then in between, I'm going to do a video that I'll be releasing on YouTube and then also on Facebook. So it gives me a chance to connect face to face as well as audio. So have the most amazing day and most amazing couple weeks. And I look forward to connecting with you guys again soon. Thank you so much for tuning in. Massive love. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. For more information, feel free to check out my website, www.taraantler.com. Have the most beautiful day.